Welcome back. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of DNS zones using PowerShell. First up is zone creation. With PowerShell, you can create a DNS zone with a simple command like new DNS server primary zone. This command will allocate a new zone, and you can even specify properties like the zone file name or whether it should be AD integrated. Next, we have a new running zone. This is where you can see all of your current zones. Use the get DNS server zone command here to list them all. It's essential to keep an eye on this. Lastly, for zone deletion, it's as straightforward as using a remove DNS server zone. We'll cover all of this in the demo. Now let's talk about DNS forwarders. These are essentially DNS servers that your server will query when it can't resolve a domain name locally. To create forwarders, you'll use the add DNS server forwarder command and the add DNS server conditional forwarder zone command. If you're interested in querying the existing forwarders, you can use the get DNS server forwarder command. This will show you the IP addresses that your server currently forwarding to. Time for a new demo. In this demo, we're going to cover setting up and managing your server DNS forwarders and conditional forwarders. We'll run through the entire process from the client perspective to give you an overall understanding of how forwarders work and how to manage them. So let's dive right in. I'm here in my Windows 10 machine connected to my Active Directory domain, and let's first create a DNS forwarder. A DNS forwarder is a DNS server on a network used to forward all locally unresolvable DNS queries to another DNS server. So let's say that, all of our clients are using the SRv1 server as a DNS server or 10.0.0.4. So let me go ahead and confirm that first. So running get DNS client server address on the Windows 10 client will show me all of the DNS servers that this Windows 10 client is using for name resolution. So look good because the first Ethernet adapter there is 10.0.0.4, so it is pointing to my SRv1 server. Now let's verify the domain on this local computer. Here I'm getting a little fancy by querying a .NET class directly called system.net.dns and using its get host by name method to query the fully qualified DNS name. This line returns the host and the domain name. So I can see the domain name is ps4sysadmins.local. Great. All right, so this client is in the ps4sysadmins local domain, which means its domain controller, SRv1, is set up with that zone. I should now be able to query any host in that domain without any trouble since this client is pointing to that SRv1 server. So let's try that out. Looks good. Now I want all DNS traffic destined for the SRv1 server that's not for a record in that authoritative domain ps4sysadmins.local zone. I want all that traffic to forward over to another server on my network called SRv2. Now I've set up a zone called internal service.local on that 2 server ahead of time. So let me first confirm that the SRv1 server this client is using cannot resolve this domain. And as expected, it fails. It fails because SRv1 doesn't know where that zone is. Now, let's add a forwarder to forward all traffic for now from that SRv1 server doesn't know about to the SRv2 server. Now, to do that, I'll need to run a command on the SRv1 server where my DNS server module is installed. Now, I'm using PowerShell remoting's invoke command to run a single command on the SRv1 server. Here I'm running add DNS server forwarder and adding the DNS server of the SRv2 server, which is 10.0.0.5. Okay, no errors. That's always a good thing. Now, the DNS server forwarder should now be set up on SRv1. Let's try that query again from my local client. Hey, it works. SRv1 didn't have the internal service.local zone, so we forwarded that request to the SRv2 server, which did, and it returned the response to the client, as you can see here, as expected. So the DNS server forwarder forwarded all the external queries to the SRv2 server, but what if you just want a single domain? Well, to do that, you need to use a conditional forwarder zone. But first, let me remove that general server forwarder and confirm it's not resolving again. And this time, I'll just open up an interactive PowerShell remoting session into SRv1, and I'll confirm that DNS server forwarder exists with get DNS server forwarder. Yep, it's there. Now I can pipe that output to remove DNS server forwarder to remove it. I'm fine with the warning, so yes. Now my client resolution should fail again. So let me confirm that by coming back to my client, and then I'll try that resolution again. It's still working. I bet the server is caching the response. So let me clear the server cache by running the clear DNS server cache command on that SRv1 server. Clear DNS server cache, can't be any more descriptive than that. Yes. All right, so the DNS server cache on SRv1 has been cleared. Now, let's try that resolution again. And there we go. It's now failing again as it should. Now, let's add a conditional forwarder which will only forward DNS queries for internal servers.local to the SRv2 server. So to do that, I will remote in to my SRv1 server again, and then I will add the conditional forwarder, add server DNS conditional forwarder zone, and then it's setting the master server, which is the server that it will forward it to, which is 10.0.0.5, which is my SRv2 server. Now that conditional forwarder should now be in place, let's confirm. Whenever you create a conditional forwarder, it technically creates a server zone on the server that's doing the forwarding. Now notice the zone type is forwarder. That designates that it is a forwarder zone. Now I'll come back to my client again, and then I'll try that resolution request again. Hey, it works. SRv1 is only forwarding requests for hosts in the internal service.local zone to the SRv2 server. Now, let's wrap this up by cleaning up our mess. Let's come back to the SRv1 server again, and now I will remove that conditional forwarder zone. Confirm, and our conditional forwarder is now gone. And there you have it. You've just learned how to create server and conditional DNS forwarders on your Active Directory Domains DNS servers, and how to remove the server forwarders when they're no longer needed.